So Professor P.G. Ratnasiri is currently a professor at the Department of Chemical and Process Engineering, University of Moratuwa. Professor Ratnasiri obtained his BSc Engineering degree with first class honors from University of Moratuwa, MSc by Research from University of Manchester, England, and PhD from Norwegian University, Science and Technology, Norway. Further, he did postdoctoral fellowship at Walloon Center of Industrial Biology at University of Liege in Belgium. Professor Ratnasiri focuses his professional work and research on industrial sewage, wastewater, solid waste treatment, and environmental impact assessment on industrial process developments. He has professionally contributed nationally and internationally as a technical advisor, consultant, team leader for UNEP ADB-funded projects. He has served as a technical advisor to Central Environmental Authority, Ministry of Environment, and for evaluation of IEEE EIA studies. So may I cordially invite Professor P.G. Ratnasiri on stage. So ladies and gentlemen, we'll welcome Professor Ratnasiri to the stage. Next, our panelist is Mr. Palinda Pereira. Mr. Palinda is a conservation biologist with over a decade of leadership in sustainability and corporate responsibility. He holds a master's in environmental management from University of Colombo and BSc Honours in environmental science from University of Greenwich, UK, along with multiple professional certifications in ESG, EUDR compliance, ESR, climate resilience, and nature-based solutions. Professionally, Mr. Palinda serves as the specialist for corporate responsibility at Rockland Distilleries, where he drives conservation, restoration, youth empowerment, and community-based livelihood development across Sri Lanka. He has spearheaded marine conservation program, advice in SDG 14, and led cloud forest restoration projects in Sri Lanka. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Palinda Pereira on stage. So next, our panelist is Dr. Ibrahim Mohammed. So Dr. Ibrahim is an environmental social science expert with a strong academic background, including PhD in environmental science from James Cook University. His career is marked by significant contribution to environmental social sciences, particularly in climate change adaptation, environmental management, and policy development. Starting his career in education, Dr. Ibrahim has dedicated over 18 years to environmental management. His work includes engaging communities in sustainability efforts and developing strategies for better environmental practices. Dr. Mohammed is driven by a mission to advise environmental stewardship through education and policy. So let's warmly welcome Dr. Ibrahim Mohammed on stage. So the last panelist is Professor Lalit Rajapaksha. So Professor Rajapaksha is a professor in civil engineering at the University of Moratuwa, Sri Lanka, specializing in water resource and hydraulic engineering. He currently serves as the director of the UNESCO Madanjit Singh Center for South Asia Water Management and holds the UNESCO chair on sustainable water resource management in South Asia. Professor Rajapaksha earned his PhD in environmental science and technology, Sataima University, Japan, with expertise in environmental hydraulics, ecological engineering, and eco-hydrology. His research focuses on surface and groundwater hydrology, watershed management, hydrological modeling, flood analysis, and climate change impacts on water resources. So let's warmly welcome Professor Lalit Rajapaksha on stage. So for the last segment of today's activity, this panel will be led by our moderator, Professor Manatunga. Professor Jagat Manatunga is attached to the Department of Civil Engineering at the University of Moratuwa, Sri Lanka. So with over decades of experience in academia and research, he has established himself as a leading expert in environmental engineering, aquatic ecology, and sustainable development. Professor Manatunga holds a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Moratuwa in 1993, a master's degree in environmental technology from Imperial College in London, PhD in biological and environmental science from Sataima University, Japan. His international academic journey includes serving as an assistant professor at Sataima University and JSPS Research Fellow. Currently serving as the Director of Postgraduate Studies in Engineering and Professor in Department of Civil Engineering, Professor Manatunga coordinates multiple postgraduate programs, including MSc in Environmental Engineering and Management. His research interests span diverse areas, including watershed management, wetland resource sustainability, water policy analysis, and environmental carrying capacity assessment. Professor Manatunga's expertise extends. He is currently serving as the Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, University of Moratuwa. So Professor Manatunga's expertise extends to critical environmental challenges such as CKDU in Sri Lanka, water quality management, and post-disaster resettlement studies. His extensive publication record demonstrates his commitment to addressing both local and global environmental challenges through rigorous scientific research. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's warmly welcome Professor Manatunga on stage. And I wish success to this panel and also your cooperation and collaboration with questions and answers section. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Utpala. So we have a panel of 4 esteemed experts on the subject. And it's a privilege to moderate this session with 4 of you. And also, I warmly welcome every one of you in the audience to this panel discussion. This is the second panel discussion for the day. And the title given for this panel discussion is Triple Planetary Crisis: Biodiversity Loss, Pollution, and Climate Change. These 3 are defining the changes of our times. If we have not lived more than a few decades, but the time when we were born and the times that we are witnessing now, we can see a huge change: biodiversity loss, climate change, and pollution. So they are not distinct problems. We have witnessed the problem and we are facing the problem during our lifetime. They shape the environment that we live in. The life support system is in danger: air, soil, water. And the air we breathe, water we drink, the food that we eat, and the natural resources that we depend on for everything. We can't invent anything on our own. We can't invent a single grain of food, rice, a single atom of water. The future depends on what we do today. We have to act now. So today, this forum, we will be discussing about these triple planetary crises: biodiversity loss, pollution, and climate change. We will try to discuss and understand the interconnectedness of these 3. It's like a circular connection that we can draw between the 3. They are interconnected. You can't take just one and say it's in isolation that it is the problem that we have. No. We need to see the interconnectedness, and then we have to explore solutions. So little bit a modified version of the previous panel discussion that we had. We will be having three phases for this discussion. So the term, the triple planetary crisis, was first coined by UNEP, and then it was endorsed by the European Environmental Agency, EEA. And right from the beginning, when they coined these terms together, when they defined this triple planetary crisis, the first thing that they did was they defined the interconnectedness. Climate change with pollution, pollution with biodiversity, biodiversity with climate change with pollution. So it's like a circle. So today we have 4 panelists. Professor Ratnasiri, I would assign you as the pollution control specialist on my own will, because based on your expertise, the background, I thought you are the best person in the panel to talk about pollution. And then Professor Lalit Rajapaksha, climate change expert, and Dr. Ibrahim. I would assign you 2 things, climate change and the biodiversity connected with the climate change. And my dear friend, Mr. Palinda Pereira, I would assign you 2 things, biodiversity as well as looking at the sustainability aspects of this. So with that, we will explore these 3 crises, how they interact, how they intersect, and how they reinforce with each other and move forward. The sustainability, how they are related to sustainability, how they prevent us in attaining the sustainable development goals. So we will first hear from you short insights from each panelist. Then we will move on to how they are interlinked. That is the second part of the discussion. And finally, we will be looking at the solutions. So the 3 parts. So I invite the audience to engage with us with curiosity. And I assure you that this will be a rich and thought-provoking dialogue. First, I'd like to invite each of my distinguished panelists to share your opening reflections. I can spare a couple of minutes for each of you. You can frame the crisis from your expertise. After that, we will move on to a moderated discussion. First, may I invite Professor Ratnasiri? Could you take us through the pollution dimension from waste to emissions and environmental health, and how pollution control can also generate or interlink to other 2, biodiversity loss and climate change? You can introduce your topic, Professor Ratnasiri.
Okay. Very good evening to you all. I think Professor Manatunga very clearly stated today our focus is biodiversity loss, pollution and climate change. Actually, those 3 topics are interlinked. I will briefly, to be honest, climate change is global, right? But I will take you how the local context to this global change. So to eye-opening, I will show you our local situation with regarding to pollution, right? Very few slides. Now, you know, nobody can discharge wastewater, right, to our precise water bodies. As you all aware, we have a wastewaters generated from the industry, and also we have a sewerage wastewater, right? At the moment, a country doesn't have a sewerage network for the entire population. Only 3 or 4% population covered by the water board, National Water Supply and Drainage Board. They are having actually nearly 18-20 plants in the country. Otherwise, mostly the sewerage infiltrate to our precise water bodies. Okay? And also, no, willingly or unwillingly, some industries discharge their wastewater to our water bodies. Like you will see how oily wastewater they have discharged into the lake, right? And so very broadly, we categorize industrial waste and sewerage. And this is the situation in the open dumping sites, except one plant in the country where operated by the 8 space in Kelorapitiya, we don't have a technology to treat municipal solid waste. To my knowledge, if I am not mistaken, there are 363 open dumping sites in Sri Lanka, right? They generate leachate, right, when the prevailing conditions exist. So this will directly, this is what you see, leachate generated from the open dumping site. They will ultimately lead to water streams, or otherwise they will generate actually these greenhouse gases, okay? This is a disaster. Now you will see, we all discuss with the plastics and polythene. This is the destination actually for the plastic and polythene, ultimate destination, right? Mix with the organic waste. Now you must know, if the wastewater discharge into the water bodies, these are the consequences. You know, biodegradable organic material degrade. You are getting more nutrients, phosphorus and carbon, right? And suspended solid, dissolved inorganics, lot of pH variations. Not only that, toxic organics, right? Heavy metals, refractory organics, bacteria, viruses, they all are leading to our water bodies, right? And then, for example, even fecal sludge, right? You can't discharge now. There are restrictions. Nowadays, this is not happening. But even the gully houses, now they are supposed to take into the plant operated by water board, okay? Now it is, but imagine if you discharge fecal sludge to environment, what are the consequences, right? And then, this is another chapter. Now, you know, even the Western province, to my knowledge, all the water bodies are polluted, right? You go to, I don't know the name, right? What is the reason, right? If you go to Anuradhapura and Polonnaru area also, these lakes are filled with this water hyacinth, right? Salvin and all this. What is the reason? They are all nutrient, right? Where they are coming? Either agricultural activities, or in Colombo, maybe either sewerage or industrial water coming into the these water bodies. Now, ultimately what will happen? If they decay, they will emit carbon dioxide and all these gases, and that will lead into lead into climate change, right? So these are the few things I want to highlight regarding pollution. I address only water pollution, okay? Not the air pollution and the land pollution, right? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Ratnasiri. Next, may I invite Professor Rajapaksha to share your thoughts as a leading voice on climate change. Please tell us how you see the current trajectory of adaptation and mitigation efforts, and what lessons that we need to keep in mind as we confront the problems related to climate change.
Yeah, good evening to you all. I really appreciate this opportunity given through this organizing this very timely and addressing a very interesting as well as important topic, the plastic waste generation, and also the under this theme we are addressing the climate impacts as well as how it is connected to the other aspects of the climate change and subsequent impact. So when we talk about this triple planetary crisis, let me say that climate change is at the core. Professor Manatunga as well as Professor Ratnasiri correctly mentioned that they are interconnected, but we can see that the climate change play a very important and primary role as the driving force for other subsequent impacts. So if I'm going to put you very briefly about this climate change, this is a story you all know about. It is basically about increasing global temperatures, and also followed by that we have increasing sea level rise. So what are the ranges? So we are defining them according to possible we call them as shared socio-economic pathways. If we commit to control greenhouse gas emissions, if we adapt ourselves to a sustainable lifestyle, maybe we can control this temperature increase within about 1 degree Celsius or slightly above. But if we go to the moderate or the next level, we might end up with temperature increase by the end of 2030, 2050 or 2100 in the range of 2, 2.4, even in the worst case. We call the worst case scenario as the fossil fuel driven development scenario. We use a lot of energy, we use a lot of unsustainable development procedures, coal power, so that will create a huge amount of carbon emissions, greenhouse emissions, leading to about 4.5 degree temperature rise towards the end of this period. And followed by that, the increase in temperature causes the dissolving or the melting of glaciers deposited in various parts of the globe. So in that case, the prediction or the projection for the sea level rise is for countries like Sri Lanka, it could be 0.5 meter by 2050. What's wrong with 0.5 meter? This much. If it happens, low-lying areas like in Batticaloa, Jaffna, seawater can intrude or seawater can inundate up to several kilometers, 5-7 kilometers inland, because these areas are low-lying. And on top of that, places like Maldives, 50% of the small islands will be gone. So the subsequent impacts include the escalating impacts, intensifying floods, heat waves, and they are interlinked with plastics pollution, what you have been talking about since in the morning. And these fossil fuel-based plastics contribute to greenhouse gas emissions throughout their life cycle, various stages of their life cycle. And also, they are connected to the biodiversity and climate nexus. And that is the worst part. The climate change amplifies biodiversity loss, and on top of that, they weaken the ecosystem's resilience or the capacity to withstand that change. And the South Asia and the global vulnerability, we are in the tropics. So if the temperature rises, we will be reaching the limits very fast than the others, because we already have high temperatures during the dry period. Now we have been experiencing unbearable temperature ranges. And on top of that, why it is urgent. So I talked just a moment ago about this temperature rise. If we do not control it properly, the temperature, global temperatures might rise exceeding 1.5 degrees by 2030 or 2050. Long time ago, several decades ago, we committed to reduce our greenhouse emissions and control the global temperature rise, but now it seems that we have failed in our attempts to do so. Very recently, the UN announced that we have exceeded the 1.5 limit. So what is this magic number? So when we go to the temperature rise, it's like this. We can see so many associated impacts in the South Asia, and followed by runoff increments, rainfall changes, and also the hot weather all around South Asia, and increase in the monsoonal rainfall patterns. On top of that, you can see the temperature variations can range from 3 to 5 degrees towards the end of this century. And if we look at the Sri Lankan context, this is a research we recently concluded. It's an ongoing research. We studied major river basins in the country. We can see a significant increase, exceeding 30% increase in the runoff generation in most of the basins. So On top of that, how we are going to handle this, the pathways forward, the climate action through innovation and circularity, mitigation, so the renewable energy, plastic to value technologies, how to recycle them, and carbon neutral production, and the adaptation. We can mitigate it to a certain extent, but then we will have to face the reality that comes with the adaptation plan. So the climate resilient design in plastics, water systems, and also the associated infrastructure, and the circular economy, as we have been discussing in the morning, reducing the virgin plastic use or demand, and exploitation of other materials through recycling, bioplastics, and also various eco-innovation, biomimicking, bio-related inventions. And the resilience, how to adapt ourselves to recover if the damage occurs, strengthening community-based systems to cope with floods, storms, and climate-driven resource scarcity, because when the temperature rises, when the rainfall patterns change, the first thing that would get affected is the agriculture. We are an agriculture-based country, so that affects the food security. And another way to go forward is the global partnerships, UN, IPCC, the Intergovernmental Climate Panel, and the World Meteorological Organization. They provide various guidelines, and we have committed in various ways to address this. But how successful we are or how committed we are, this shows the clear picture. In the Paris Agreement, we agreed to cut down our emissions, but you can see how good we are in committing to achieve this. Thank you. We will continue this discussion further.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Rajapaksha, for your wonderful and very informative slides. Next, may I invite Dr. Ibrahim Mohammed. You bring a crucial perspective from the Maldives. Please highlight how sea level rise is already reshaping small island nations, threatening coastal biodiversity, and creating profound social and ecological challenges. Dr. Ibrahim.
Okay, thank you very much. As Professor mentioned just now, the global sea level rise now is about 5 millimeters per year increasing. So by end of this century, yes, we might be reaching more than a meter of sea level rise. And Maldives, about 70% of land is 1.5 meter above sea level. So we will be having devastating impacts. And also coastal inundation is very common now due to sea level rise and other impacts. And our infrastructure, all our infrastructure, majority, more than 70% is 200 meters from the shoreline. So we will be facing devastating impacts from that as well. As mentioned before, this crisis, climate crisis, is having different impacts, temperature as well as sea level rise, both combined together is increasing the impacts for terrestrial as well as other biogeological systems. So we have the extreme weather events being increased. Then there is high confidence that these risks are being increased, especially if you look at the temperature. If it goes above 1.5 to 2, you can see the purple area is risk impacts getting higher. Now, if we look at this in a more profound way, the warming is mostly impacting the warm water corals. So if we look at the here. Sorry, I can't show the pointer. So warm water corals, even if it goes 1.5 degrees, they are at very high risk. So the coral reefs are 90% of coral reefs will be impacted even with 1.5 degrees warming because the coral bleaching will have devastating impacts. And in the Maldives scenario, actually, what scientists have observed is that due to sea level rise, currently at the moment, there is no net loss from the coastal sediments, but there is a lot of shifting. If you look at the historical perspectives, how the islands shift, you can see that it's very dynamic. Over the years, the sand around the islands move in different ways. And with sea level rise and flooding, this will be impacted quite heavily, and the islands may lose the ability to adapt naturally. So we also have to design solutions. So as mentioned in other panel, we need to bring horizontal and vertical integration of experts, from mathematicians to social scientists, microbiologists, architects, engineers like most of us here. This is actually a bio-design challenge which our university, Maldives National University, together worked with 2 universities from the US, and we designed a special shaped coastal protection measure. So this is based on biomimicry. We look at the sea urchins and how they attach to the bottom of the sea, and this was designed to be used in microbes and calcium carbonate. The microbes will actually amalgamate this to form these blocks. So this is an innovative solution I thought I would share with you. By the way, this project also has was among top 10 from 60 universities, including some Ivy League universities also competed in this innovative challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ibrahim. May I invite Mr. Parinda Pereira as a sustainability and conservation specialist. Please tell us how you think in systems integrating responses across biodiversity, pollution, climate change, so that development becomes both resilient and equitable. Your thoughts, Mr. Parinda Pereira.
Good evening. I hope I won't make you sleep. So it's the inconvenient truth. I represent a corporate sector, which I'm not supposed to say. Right. So I'll go from there. The triple planetary crisis, I'll be addressing some of the areas. Just wanted to highlight of this. Now, this is the Red List Index, the most recent one. And then see Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is the most reddest country of the world. Why? Because we have a lot of threatened species. According to the classification over here, if you have one, you're safe. You're not getting extinct. But if you're near 0, you have a lot of species who are going extinct very soon, and then they are threatened. So that's the criteria. And you also want to highlight over there, you have the threatened with extinction species categories. I'm not sure whether you can see over there. There is reef corals, amphibians, trees, sharks, mammals, freshwater fish, and so on and so forth. I feel that Sri Lanka has assessed some of these species, but not all. Why? Because we don't have the statistics at the moment. So probably we might have assessed amphibians and reptiles. We have a good knowledge on that. What if we also assessed everything over here? Probably our red dot would have been black. Food for thought. I'll just park it over there. This is a very close, sensitive thing to me as well. Now, this is cloud forest. You have forest fires in the Central Highlands. You have invasive species, and people also set them on fire. That's one of the patches which we are trying to restore, some of the threatened amphibians. So this is the restoration patch which is done by Olu Water. So we are connecting Horton Plains buffer zone towards a broken, fragmented forest. That's the connectivity which we want to do. And from that, what we want to do is help prevent future water scarcity, plus also have a biodiversity corridor where animals can move around, and also help with the assisted natural regeneration. We don't plant. We don't want to plant like that. It never works like that. We go through the science basis and we plant only the pioneer species. So it's very scientific. It takes time, but corporates sometimes don't understand. Even my heads also wonder why I'm not planting the thing. But what we are doing is very scientific, and it takes time, unfortunately. Just give you a small clue. Now this is one of the trails which we do, and then you can see a orange color trail on top of it, which is about 150 to 200 meter stretch. I just want to highlight how much diversity we have in that area. All these species are the threatened ones. We have about 20 plus amphibians, which is found only on that area, and sometimes even during daytime. But the interesting fact is most of these amphibians are found at night. So surprisingly, that is how diverse we are. But imagine one of the previous forest fires which I showed you. If this area gets burned, probably that whole entire ecosystem will be collapsing. Food for thought. And then the species which you found at the dead patch which I showed you is Polypidacea equus, which is also endangered. All these are categorized under IUCN Red List threatened species. Coming from there to terrestrial to marine ecosystems, that over the corner is the reef system decline of our area. So it has been 40 and now it's 20 during the last decade. And coming to marine protected area declaration during last 2 decades, this is where we stand. It's really alarming to see Central and Southern Asia, including us, not only us, but there are other countries also, we've been the least. Very unfortunate. Even Sub-Saharan Africa has grown their marine protected areas. Unfortunately, we've done less than 2% for 2 decades. Food ideas which you need to conserve. We are talking about 30 by 30. 2030, we need to declare 30% of our marine and land spaces. Where are we? And then during the last decade, we are just 0.5%. So unfortunate. We don't even know what we have. And we talk about marine disasters, talking about express pearl. What are we supposed to say? We don't have the statistics. We don't know what sort of species were there. I'll park it there. We have a load of coral reefs around the country. This is Trincomalee. Unfortunately, they are also being damaged by abandoned, lost, discarded fishing gear. Some of the fishing nets which you can find around. We also do underwater cleanups by volunteer members with reef cleanups by snorkeling and diving. So initiatives which we do with some of our brands. That's the statistics on 2021. So we don't have statistics. So we were the 14th largest polluter of the world, just parking there. And this is what it is when you see. This is Kudavela. A surprising thing. We cleaned up on 2022. We did a cleanup. Entire thing was clean. I went about 1.5 months back. It was the same. So it's not just the cleaning. You need to make the attitude change. You might have seen elephants also feeding on garbage. Same thing in Jaffna, Gurunagar. Mangrove ecosystems, they are also polluted like that. And then this is Crow Island, where Kalani River falls into the sea. Unfortunate. According to our statistics, I don't know about the Sri Lankan perspective, we've done some studies over here. This is by far the worst polluted beach with solid waste. That's the stat which we found. It's not been mentioned anywhere else. Even ChatGPT never worked. So that mount over there is taller than me. Just imagine how much. This is roughly about 2 kilometers. The whole thing gets covered. This is not only there. You get it in Walaway River and Kaluganga. All the beaches which is next to those bigger rivers where it is ending, it has the same impact. And I wanted to highlight this. Now, this is Clean Ocean Force deploying women to remove garbage on a daily basis on Western and Northern Province. So, by helping some of the corporates, including us, we help them. Now, corporates fund these members to remove the plastic as one of their CSR initiatives. What happens is that money gets directly towards the women. There is about 300 women being deployed. And what they can do is they can also sell the items which they collect to material recovery facilities, which is a good thing. They get paid twice. So I'll probably park it over here. We'll discuss it on time to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your very insightful opening reflections. It's very frightening listening to you and witnessing your own research background studies that has gone into these. Now what becomes clear is that the crises, the three, are deeply embedded in the system. The solutions might not be that simple. Now, to understand them properly, we need to see the connections first. That's what we decided at the beginning. So let's turn to a conversation that explores these interconnections. To start with, Professor Ratnasiri, you were talking about not having wastewater systems, the industrial waste discharges, and the agriculture-related water pollution. And you also framed pollution as a local and a technical issue. And also Professor Rajapaksha also mentioned about the climate change which magnifies pollution scenarios and pollution risks. They are interconnected, and you just at the end you mentioned about air pollution as well. You touched upon that, and it can also spread waste. I think we better link pollution control strategies with climate adaptation strategies, as Professor Rajapaksha mentioned later. But before going on to discuss about climate change, Professor Ratnasiri, can you please tell us how does climate change magnify pollution risks? For example, through floods, or say the water is a carrier of pollutants, air or heat waves or waste management failures, or the pollution control. Sometimes we call that management, waste management, but mostly what we do here is mismanagement. Most of the factories that we have, they have pollution control measures, but the level of control is something that they define on their own. Professor Ratnasiri, could you please discuss about how climate change may or will definitely magnify the pollution risks, the pollution scenarios?
Yeah, thank you, Professor Manatunga. Actually, before that, I would like to enlighten you what is the pollution mean, right? Pollution mean, now you know in our natural ecosystem, we have a natural cycles, carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, etc. So they are doing this natural both the waste degradation. But when we generate pollutants that they cannot handle, then we need the man-made solutions. That is why we are going for the waste road treatment, solid waste treatment, and so on. Now, when it comes to climate change, for example, temperature increases in the variations and then the flooding, let us say, as you all know, when the greenhouse gas generate, as I shown in this leachate one, then probably methane and carbon dioxide will generate, right, when the anaerobic conditions prevail. Now, under certain conditions, let us say when the temperature increases, actually, when this temperature increases, again it will affect for the climate change. How it happens? For example, at a very high temperature, some of that volatile organic carbon present in this leachate, they will evaporate, right? And then they will, with the sunlight, then the ozone will generate at a lower level in the surface. Then that will again, the surface will heat more, right? And also they will have aerosols generations, tiny particles. So then you will see how the climate change again reflect into the increase of the pollutions. That is the one example for the gaseous level. For example, imagine now you get the flooding, right? For example, now we have this waste management techniques like engineered landfilling, right? Imagine if the landfill is flooded with the water, then everything will be again added to the water and pollution concentration will increase. For example, in my area is actually process engineering. Imagine the production facility is subjected to flooding. Like for example, let us say sulfuric production, you have a raw sulfur, then the sulfuric acid is storage. Now if they are flooded, then those pollutants will be the immense damage. Now you don't need to go to that level. You imagine the flooding in the Kaduvel area, in the highway. So most of if the septic tanks are open actually, only we have a sealed septic tank and the open soakage pits. Now if that flooding goes to the open soakage pits, entire water will be polluted with the pathogens and that will lead to again disaster, right? So there is always linkage with the climate change and then it will reflect back to worsen the situation, right? So I highlighted 2 examples, right? Even in the gaseous pollution from the industry, even the transportation, right? Even some of our cities, I don't know to name, they are highly polluted, right? Because of these emissions. They will lead to greenhouse GHG emissions and they will again reflect back by worsening the situation.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Ratnasiri. I think, as you mentioned, only less than 3% of our toilets are connected to a central wastewater collection systems. The rest, on-site wastewater disposal systems, definitely they might get affected by these floods. And we have first-hand information. Every day we witness what happens at Kardiana next to our university. It's located in a wetland next to Nugegoda Lake, and we know the connection between this so-called waste management site and the water pollution.
It was actually when the heavy rains and after the sun shining, university also get the smell, right?
Exactly, yes. And I would like to get Professor Lalita also connected in this discussion. You discussed about you touched upon the biodiversity and climate change nexus, and also you discussed about in your slide the interlinkages between pollution and climate change, and you stressed on the urgency of acting now. Can you please very briefly describe this a bit further? How do climate impacts exacerbate both pollution and biodiversity loss?
Yeah, exactly. I showed you that because of the increase in the temperature, there can be changes in the monsoonal rain patterns. They increase the runoff generation. The more runoff flowing overland or in the streams means they have an erosion capacity, and on top of that, the carrying capacity is higher, so they carry all the sediments, plastic materials, various other pollutants to the river network and also to the downstream reservoirs. So the immediate impact is when the reservoirs are loaded with sediments, the turbidity level increases due to the light penetration attenuation and also the reduction in the oxygen level that can lead to fish kills. That creates an kind of a situation. We have experienced it associated with Bear Lake and various other ecological systems. So there are compound impacts. Like on top of that, how the climate change create domino effects. You remember last time, immediately following a long drought period, there were heavy rains in the Kalani River Basin. The entire system, including the disaster management and also the provincial or divisional secretariat, they were attending to the drought relief. That is also an impact of climate change. But when there is a huge flood following that, the system was not ready to change their mood and attempt to attend to those following disasters. So in addition to that, another thing we have noted is the reluctance or there are technologies, and also due to various institutional capacities, financial restrictions, and also due to development priorities, they are not implemented, and we have completed some of these tasks halfway. So that exacerbate the damage. So that is how climate change lead to increased pollution and complicated devastation scenarios.
Okay, I think we will extend that in the next round, the solutions that we have and how to develop resilience and then how to face such challenges. Dr. Ibrahim, you spoke very powerfully about sea level rise threatening small island countries like the Maldives and the coastal communities as well as the coastal biodiversity. Can you please touch upon on how rising sea levels compound biodiversity loss in general, coastal ecosystems, mangroves? You touched upon coral reefs. The sea level rise and the devastating effects on coral reefs, and it was further elaborated by Mr. Palinda Pereira. Can you please touch upon that very briefly?
Yeah, thank you. As you are aware, with the sea level rise, the inundation of seawater is a huge risk. And also at the same time, in the islands, the freshwater lens is salinized because when the sea level rises, it intrudes into the island's freshwater lens. So the island's vegetation is heavily impacted. A few years back, we had a mangrove die out in the north of the Maldives. And what we found was the mangroves were actually dying out of dehydration due to salt water intrusion into the systems. And when the rainfall is, when it has a drought year compounded by these inundations, the mangroves actually, even though they can tolerate to some extent the saltiness, if the saltwater intrusion is prolonged, then they die out due to water stress. So this is one major impact. The other one is the seagrass. We have found that there are studies that the seagrass beds accumulate a lot of microplastics because in the seagrass, the sediments capture not only carbon but also other materials. So the benthic organisms living in the seagrass are now filled with microplastics, and their productivity is heavily impacted. And the other thing is also the wave patterns and the currents are also being impacted due to sea level rise. This has again impacts on the communities and the ecosystems from impacting trophic levels as well. And also the fecal coliform and other materials which flow into the sea, when they combine with microplastics, there are, the way they sink to the bottom and the way they integrate in the nitrogen cycle is heavily impacted. So there's a lot of interconnections. I think we should call this as the whole thing is a planetary crisis.
Thank you, Dr. Ibrahim. Yes, I agree with you. Untreated wastewater, both industrial, domestic, fecal matter, agricultural runoff, I think they ultimately pollute watercourses and the coastal areas. Mr. Palinda Pereira, moving on to you, you emphasize the fragility of ecosystems. And also, this morning we discussed about the importance of a systems perspective rather than looking at these individually. Given what we have heard from you, biodiversity under threat, pollution you described as a multiplier, climate and sea level rise pressing harder year after year. Can you please explain us how sustainability thinking help us to integrate solutions rather than addressing issues in silos, in compartments? Design solutions should not be thought in piecemeal wise. They have to be integrated and we have to look at holistically. What is your opinion on that?
Right. I'll give you an example. Team, can you? Okay. So
Yes, please.
no, this will run out when we talk about it.
Right.
I'll give you an example. Now, I come from a spirit industry, which I'm not supposed to talk over here. So what we wanted to do is incorporate some of our values to corporate responsibility and then incorporate them into preventing triple planetary crisis. So that was a different kind of exposure which I wanted to do. We were talking about the coral reef damages and then what we can do. Then putting them in silos, most of our members, most of the corporates, they will like what they want to do. Now this is a pristine ecosystem in Trincomalee. Unfortunately, some of you all might not be able to see, but it's been damaged. Though it's nice in some areas, it's completely damaged in some areas. And some of the single-use plastic, some of the netting, you call it abandoned, lost or discarded fishing gear. So that could be another livelihood, which is also affecting coral reefs. So we don't have buying back solutions. We don't have at the moment. Most of our corporates, they think about sustainability when they talk about it. It's mostly carbon. It could be carbon emission reduction or maybe carbon footprint minimization. It's not just carbon. You have to think about all three components of ESG: environment, social, and governance. And when you do about environment, you have biodiversity loss. You have other areas where eutrophication could be issues leading to invasive species. And then there is so much of things, but most of the corporates are now in the tunnel vision where they only think about carbon, material circularity. So things like that will always affect the interconnectedness, where we might be addressing some of the issues, but sometimes we might be also worsening other areas. Yeah. So that way around, you need to think about it very carefully. And thinking beyond the box. Now we have most of the academics as well as there is members who are still studying in universities. Personal experience, there was not a role at the place where I'm working at the moment. I had the passion, which I converted into a job. So this is an area where all these youngsters, the youth who are already in universities, could convert themselves. There is a whole area of environmental science. If you know something which you can probably do, that might be a good opportunity where you can find a job as well as do something to prevent environment degradation. It could be prevention of pollution, it could be helping biodiversities, it could be even communities. So altogether, it will be also addressing corporate responsibilities, you call it CSR, and also you get a brand image and you get mileage out of it. So this could be your hobby converting into your job, like what happened to mine. So there is areas where you need to work. I'm talking about the corporate background, not the science area. So academics could also lead their students to do their final researches, which will not end by the end of their terms. So what you can do is look into those areas where you can directly influence. It could be an issue which we have already, material circularity. There could be single-use plastics which you cannot recycle, maybe upcycling methodologies, maybe do some statistics of what you put out, nitrates, phosphates, so which could be absorbed by an organization which is promoting maybe agriculture. So things like that you can directly connect. So what I'm saying is you should not always look in silos. but broadly thinking and then acting wherever there is possibilities will lead the role.
I think it's very interesting listening to you, Mr. Palind. Now, interests driven by passion, I think that will make things happen. Nobody can't force anybody to do. But I think we have to start from the kindergarten, and then that is the best level to make our small kids aware, and they will take the message and they will tell their parents what to do, what is the correct thing to do. I think the passing the baton again is so important, and also you touched upon ESR. I think that is the holistic way of looking at things. Now, listening to you all, it's a bit but it's frightening. I think if we do not act now, it will be more frightening. It will be a nightmare. And one thing stands out: these crises reinforce each other. We all agree. I think you have given much evidence, much things to think about. And also, I think the solutions are also it's not that complicated, but we should not make them complicated. If you had to highlight one area where collaborations across biodiversity pollution and biodiversity loss pollution and climate would deliver the biggest impact, we will next round we will discuss about the solutions that we can devise. Thank you very much for your thoughtful exchanges. But before we move on to the next round of discussion, discussing about solutions, let's pause a little bit and hear one or two quick reflections from the audience. If you have anything to add to these interconnections of the three crises that we have just discussed, it's over to you. Any of you, if you want to add anything, your comments, or even you can ask anything from the panelists. One or two very quick questions.
Panelists or the moderator?
I'm sorry.
No, panelists, of course.
I was thinking something else. Yes, please, yes.
We have been talking about this dumping garbage, or let's say plastic. So have you got any idea as active members in this area? So we have been dumping this much of garbage per day, and we are clearing whatever through these projects or whatever CSR or anything like that, taking this much out. And what is left? And anything to be done to the left, accelerate our process of cleaning beaches or anything like that, the number-wise thing. Otherwise, it's pointless. You know, we always talking about we are dumping, somebody is taking out. We don't know the difference.
The amount that is being dumped and but is being collected.
Collected and the rest. Any idea about that or any analysis?
I think that might be a very difficult thing to answer because now waste generation is something is continuous, right? So as I think Mr. Palinda Pereira gave a very good case study. It's like after 1.5 months, you see the same amount of plastics.
It's 2022, and then I went about 1.5 months before. After.
Yeah, so 1.5 months, the same amount of plastics will get collected. But the dispersion we do not know, because the pollutants might not remain at the same place. They might get disturbed. Any comments from others? Yes.
I'll give you an example. Now, Kudavella beach area, which I showed you in the picture, there was roughly around 500 tons of garbage, wet mixed garbage. I need to sell that because it was with sand. We used JCBs to take it out. That was not the patch which I'm talking about. Yeah, there was a whole beach covered up with nets and all these things. 500 tons were taken out within 4 days with the help of Marine Environment Protection Authority. Some of the organizations also worked with that. What are we doing afterwards? We are acting on an action, but not a solution. Plus, I have the statistics of the discarded fishing gear. That's about, as I know, it's about 6,000 tons of fishing gear, 6,000 kilos or ton. I can't exactly remember. So 6,000, I think, tons are found in nature on a yearly basis. So we take about 2-3 tons the maximum. So, and that's on a yearly basis. That's out of statistics. What I'm saying.
I think that answered you. So shall we move on to the next? I think Professor Ratnasiri, can you can answer that together with this. I think now you said the pollution is an overwhelming problem. It's a problem. It's huge. It has multitudes of connections. But there are many solutions also, from cleaner production to waste reduction, avoidance. We can reduce even gas emissions, greenhouse gases, for example, so that ecosystems can be protected by conservation measures. Okay, can you just, together with the answer to the question from the audience, what scalable pollution control strategies can you suggest, which simultaneously will deliver health, climate, biodiversity, all these benefits that we can think of?
Actually, the question you asked, what is the amount generated and what is going to the open dumping site? In 2014, we did some analysis in the Kardian dumping site, and our students went there, and we found that per day, at that time, 480 metric tons per day coming from all this Pradesh Sabha and urban kind of thing. At the moment, now what is happening is, once they collected the waste actually, that garbage drivers and those workers, they separate plastics in the end. They sell it before going to the dumping site. Then nobody knows what is the amount actually collected from home. So even though you estimate from the open dumping site, that is the one answer, right? So there is we can actually systematically do this survey and conduct them on. And when you come to solutions, actually, this is what I'm telling you now, end of the pipe treatment, like waste treatment solutions. Now we have to be very carefully select, depending on the pollutant types, whether it is toxic, whether we can degrade it biologically or chemically, biochemically, physical chemical. There are many treatment techniques. But I am not going to elaborate everything, but Professor Manatunga asked, it should be the sustainable and scalable also solution. Now for me, I will tell you this for the open dumping and this garbage problem in Sri Lanka. Now, if we can separate recyclable things, right, and then already we have organic biodegradable fractions, and there are certain fractions actually that cannot be recycled, right? And for me, that to avoid the leachate generation and to give the food waste the sustainable solution, I propose large-scale anaerobic digestion, right? So then it is scalable. I am not talking about the tiny biogas reactors, right? The fully pledged control technology, which this is the one reason in this country. For the wastewater treatment, this anaerobic digestion working perfectly in the industries. Only problem is the solid waste and these cases. So now we have to actually, why? If this very perfectly work for the wastewater treatment in the industry, why not for the solid waste? Then what I am suggesting, rather than the incineration is actually our solid waste has more moisture. Then for the incinerate, you need additional energy. So rather than that, we can go to a large scale anaerobic digestion. Then you do the waste management. Then you minimize the greenhouse gas emissions, right? You finally generate very highly enriched fertilizer, which will affect the biodiversity, and we can change our ecosystem, right? So we can get these triple benefits out of the large scale anaerobic digestion. So other techniques like engineered landfilling, composting, incineration, large scale anaerobic, these are actually 4 technologies available. Out of this, I propose this one for the large scale and for the organic fractions, right?
Yeah, I think thank you very much. Now, you may remember in 2017, anaerobic digestion was proposed at Karadiana. So what we need is to tackle any of these three crises: governance, political will, leadership. Now, this morning, Dr. Vanchuk, he mentioned about the leadership was the most important point for their success in environmental conservation. We need the same. Karadiana still pollutes the environment, but we failed to devise solutions at that time. Even with all technical expertise coming together, there was no leadership, will. It didn't come from the right policymakers, unfortunately. Moving on, Professor Rajapaksha, you mentioned about pathways forward, climate action through innovation and circularity. What specific policy now for adaptation and mitigation? We very often we spoke of these two. What specific policies or innovations do you see as game changers, especially for countries like ours, both to reduce emissions, safeguard vulnerable communities? Moving away from climate change, what would you propose? I think we can't separate out climate change, but if you put all these three crises together, what are the specific policies or inventions that you can think of?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Let me little bit go away from the question, because of course there is an urgency to look for solutions. Like we need combined action, we need coordinated solutions, but what is the urgency? I mentioned you about this 1.5 degree Celsius climate-induced temperature increment. So what is this magic number? Because we targeted to contain or the control this temperature increase of 1.5 degree by 2030. But in 2024, UN announced that we have failed. The problem with this 1.5 degrees is any temperature increase beyond that point, the damage caused to the environment, ecosystems, biosystems will be irreversible. So we will be damaging the ecosystem, biological systems, and also, as correctly pointed out, certain species will go into extinction. Mm-hmm. So we are not going to recover them again. So that is why we need to urgently attend to these issues. Of course, a coordinated long-term solution is needed. Why? Because if we try to provide short-term solutions to problems we experience at the moment, that might create even more serious problem towards the end. Like we have started changing our power generation modes. So let's say importing electric-driven vehicles to sort out this fuel-driven gas emission or maybe the power crisis, that might create even more problems when we do not have correct measures to recycle the lithium, cadmium, and lead, various other materials included in the battery production. Developed countries, they might have this recycling and other platforms. And on top of that, we have committed to shift from power generation from coal, fuel-driven methods to renewable approaches. Hydropower, and hydropower we have reached a particular limit now. No more major power plant projects because of the various other environmental issues, and no possible places for mini hydro and micro hydro. All are saturated or exploited out. So now we have committed to shift renewable energy 70% by 2030. But how we are going to do that? Are we going to cut forest and establish or construct solar power plants? That won't help the situation, because we have on the other hand promised to at least to increase the forest cover or retain it as present until 2050. So that is why combined or coordinated long-term solution is needed. Otherwise, when we try to sort out individual issues one by different authorities or different organizations, that will put our nation into a further crisis.
Yeah, I think we can't act individually. It might create chaos than providing solutions. Moving to Dr. Ibrahim, I think countries like Maldives are on the front line of sea level rise. Can you please describe what adaptation pathways or solutions you can think of, whether in coastal protection, community relocation, ecosystem-based adaptation or conservation, or for the most feasible ways of solutions? What can we rely on? And if you can also expand that to how larger nations can support small islands in this existential challenge. Your thoughts on that, please?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's loaded with very many aspects. The most important aspect is in adaptation is allowing the natural adaptation to be enhanced. But what we are trying to do is, because of the urgency of the matter and because of the crisis, we are bringing in very expensive hard engineered solutions. For small islands, these hard engineered solutions, hard engineered coastal protection actually is a maladaptive form of intervention, because what we are trying to do is stop the natural adaptation and sedentarize and make permanent structures. But if we allow the natural islands to survive on their own, the natural processes will actually accrete sand from the reefs, and it will continuously rebuild and repair the islands. But we are too eager to, protect so much that we don't allow this. So this is one very important aspect we have to consider. And the other thing is, restoration and also protection. 30 by 30 is something we need to achieve for mangrove, seagrass, and other things. But given the challenges in the Maldives due to land scarcity, we are reclaiming a lot of coral reefs by putting sand on the lagoons and covering the reefs and seagrass beds to make more new land. So these are also again challenges we have, how we can balance this and ensure that we don't destroy a lot of reefs. And then there is compounding effects like sedimentation, smothering other reefs around, and there are so many things. The other thing I think we need to consider is for all these crises, our region, as a region, we are actually in one of the heaviest polluters. If we look at the largest river systems which pollute the ocean through plastics, our continent, our area has the 8 major rivers. We have 3 major river systems from the Indian subcontinent, and from the Chinese continent we have another 3 river systems. So these river systems are actually putting the highest amount of pollutants into the ocean. And we all know the ocean is now like an industrialized zone. There's everything happening: shipping, submarine cables, fishing, tourism, marine extraction of seabed mining. All these several things are happening. So the ocean is no longer something too big for us to ignore. It is itself in a crisis. So we need more regional collaboration. Of course, the international conventions and agreements, the UNFCCC, is not actually helping us much. While our region is actually, other than the sub-Saharan Africa, we are the highest vulnerable region for climate change, but our policymakers are not having regional dialogue. I was very happy this morning we had this SACEP director, but I don't even think the SACEP has a climate change special unit or department. So actually we need more regional collaboration for all these crises because for pollution and other regional crises or international global crises, there's very little regional level, collaboration. Even India, they have launched a very important program to educate citizens, because at the end of the day, if we don't reduce consumption and excessive, use of energy, it's not going to help, because we have to address this as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ibrahim.
Sorry, I took a very long time.
I think you gave a very, very, very strong, powerful message. Sea is not something to ignore, and we are all connected. We are not, we should not, and we cannot work in isolation. We cannot think in isolation. We have to collaborate, we have to work together. The final question, Mr. Palinder, you emphasized integration and systems thinking. Can you explain a little bit about what a truly sustainable development pathways would look like in practice? How do we make sure that solutions are long-lasting, not just resilient? They have to be equitable, leaving no one behind. Your thoughts on that, please?
Right. So if I think again from the corporate background, the best ever answer which I can give you is work on ESG, environment, social, governance. If we talk about environment, this topic which we are addressing today should be the agenda.
Yes.
It should be pollution prevention, biodiversity loss prevention, and also climate change. So this is the foundation for any corporate or any entity which is looking to tackle issues in terms of environment. I would say go ahead with that area. It will be more than enough things which you can do. It's not just tree planting, not just the Me and Kumbuk. There could be so much of conservation action could be done in the country to minimize the disasters. I'll come back at the latter part to another point which I want to highlight. Social, you can increase the human capital development. You can also talk about livelihood development in terms of it's not just the capacity, but you can work out. An easy example of all water which we do in the Central Highlands is that we get the plants from the community. Directly, you get the pioneer species identified with a scientific background. You just tell them to plant only those. If they plant Me and Kumbuk, we don't. I had a slide which I just deleted. So what we want to do is, we need to also give out awareness about it and get our conservation action to help their community development. So that is also integration. So in that sense, there is so much of degraded areas. We also have the 30 by 30. We have so much of areas which is degraded by invasive species, degraded by forest fires, degraded by illegal clearance. Some of the areas, if we do it, we can for sure increase our forest cover, which will directly help the water scarcity prevention as well as other benefits. And if you go towards the governance, it's about the best practices, reporting, highlighting. Because if you do something, you need to highlight it. It's not just the best thing. If you do something, if you fail, like Hemind over here in the last panel mentioned, showcase your failures, because someone who is supposed to be doing the same thing will not do it.
Yeah.
So that way you're stopping someone falling into the trap which you got into. So that is one of the things which I need to highlight, because corporates, if they fail, they don't. So good thing which you need to know. And my final thought, I would say, when we were schooling, not that far along, the average temperatures in Sri Lanka, when we were writing, it was about 24 degrees, 24.5, 25. What's the temperature now? it's 30 plus, 32, something like that. What will happen in 10 years, in 5 years? If it goes beyond 40, like when we were in India, in Ahmedabad, the temperatures were 39 degrees. I didn't want to go outside because you feel like when you open the oven to cook whatever you like, you get the nostrils having the tingling sensation of burning. That's the temperature which you feel when you bypass that temperatures. So I'm relating this into environment. Photosynthesis plants survive on the temperatures. So it's a bell curve, which from there onwards, it goes down. So the optimum temperatures is around, the maximum which they can tolerate is about 41 to 43. Imagine we bypass that. All of our food will be lost. And we are concerned about food, but what's the byproduct of photosynthesis? Oxygen. So then we are also having another issue, which will be coming in very near future if we don't think about the circularity of the system.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for those thought-provoking comments. I think they're very powerful. I think we have gone past the time allocation. Just to wind up in a few minutes, without going on to the panelists, may I ask one or two questions from? So, if say invite any thoughts from the audience, any questions, any reflections, any perspectives, if you can add any comments onto the discussion, just one or two, very quickly. Then shall we wind up the session? I should first thank all the panelists for the very powerful insights. What we have heard today is very clear, very comprehensive. The triple planetary crisis, biodiversity loss, pollution, climate change, they are not three separate problems. It's one interconnected challenge. When ecosystems collapse, pollution worsens. When pollution spreads, climate change accelerates, and when climate change intensifies, biodiversity loss is inevitable. But we have heard something equally important, the solutions. Solutions are interconnected too. Restoration of ecosystems that will build resilience, reducing pollution improves both health and climate change, as Dr. Ratnasiri mentioned. Tackling climate change opens pathways for sustainable growth, Mr. Palinder mentioned. And tackling climate change, again, will weave these solutions together, Professor Lalit mentioned, and we all get together and we find a place called Earth to live together. Small nations who are so vulnerable to this climate change, and there are nations which are not so vulnerable, but still they have something to do to help out each other. The message is urgent, but it is also hopeful. We know what we need to be done. If we know the problem, why do we not do anything? We need to act now. Collaboration across sectors, across borders, across disciplines, it is possible. And we know that the time is short, but not yet gone. As you said, 5 years, 10 years, very short periods, but our lives are also very short. We have to do something during our lifetime so that the next generation would not suffer. Let us leave this room not just more aware, but more determined, because if these crises are planetary, so too must be our resolve. Together we can turn the triple crisis into a triple opportunity for resilience, justice, sustainability. Thank you very much, my dear colleagues, for your thought-provoking inputs. I enjoyed talking to you, and I hope the audience might have enjoyed what we have been discussing here. I need to close. Pras Bandhani is frowning at me. So before they chase out from this location, thanking you again and thanking the audience, thanking the organizers for inviting us to be here. Have a very good evening. Thank you.
Well, quoting Professor Manatunga, we know the problem and it's time to take action. Well, thank you very much, panelists, once again, for a very, very insightful session on environmental crisis, the triple crisis relating to the environment. It was indeed a pleasure listening to all of you. Now let me call upon the conference co-chairs, Professor Jagat Manatunga and Professor Banduni Atapattu, along with Mr. Danushka Manoj, Organizing Committee Chair, to present tokens of appreciation to the panelists. A few more tokens of appreciation to Professor Bandini and Professor Jagat Manatunga from Zina and Himanujan. A very big thank you to our panelists and of course the moderator once again. We have now come to the end of today's proceedings, but before we wind up today's session, let me invite the conference joint secretary, Engineer Himanujan Sivaperuman, to give the closing remarks.
A very good evening to all the distinguished guests, moderators, panelists, and colleagues. It is my privilege to offer these closing remarks for the afternoon panel discussions at the ICPES 2025. We began our first panel on smart circularity, how AI and digital innovation are revolutionizing the plastics economy, which showed us how technology can reshape the way we design, recycle, and manage plastics. Our second panel on the triple planetary crisis, biodiversity loss, pollution, and climate change reminded us the urgency of interconnected global challenges and the need of collective science-driven action. Together, these conversations highlighted one key message: innovation and collaboration are essential if we are to achieve a sustainable plastic-free future. On behalf of the organizing committee, I extend sincere thanks to our moderators, panelists, and all the participants for your contributions today. With that, we conclude our today's session, and I warmly invite you to join us at the Open University of Sri Lanka for technical sessions and award ceremony tomorrow. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day.